Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Too Old to Die Young, Volume 2, The Lovers. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always.
You really struggled to get that title out there, didn't you?
I'm just not used to saying volume, and I'm used to saying season something, episode something.
I get it, but you really looked uncomfortable.
I was uncomfortable. I was in complete discomfort the entire time.
Well, blame Refn.
I am blaming Refn. Which, by the way, we never talked about his production company last episode, because both episodes have started so far with by hashtag by NWR.
Yeah,
which I thought was really funny. That's his.
He's hip.
Oh sure, yeah. He's a hip individual. So this episode, we have none of Martin, we have none of LA, we have nothing but Mexico. We take Jesus, who we met last episode. He was the one who killed Larry, and we focus on him and his family and get kind of basically the other side of it. And I remember thinking that this might be what this episode is when I saw the thumbnail. When I was glancing at episodes after I watched the first one, I was like, I wonder if that's all set in Mexico, if it's all just like that side of it. And it turned out it was. And we learn more about the Don. We learn more about his actual son Miguel. We learn about Yaritza, who's this adoptive daughter that's kind of the family. And Magdalena, we find out she's the Don's. I mean, we knew that from last episode. She's the Don's sister, but we get a bit more about what his relationship was to her. That he seemed to love her
more than his wife.
More than his wife, yes, a great deal. They're taking her birthday, very seriously. His sister, they're taking his birthday. And this, of course, was Jesus's mother, who some of the locals, particularly in the police force, are referring to him as the American Prince. And he's trying his best to keep up with the Spanish. I had subtitles though, so I was okay.
Oh, thank God for subtitles, right?
Yes. That said, I mean, I feel like most things I watch that are foreign and have subtitles, I feel like I'm constantly reading subtitles. Refn is so slow and moody with his scenes that like the subtitles are so far apart in some scenes that there's literally sections
You've
of
got
it.
time to read the subtitles and then just watch their faces for 3 or 4 seconds.
Yes, yeah. So sometimes a lot longer than 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah, but at bare minimum.
Yeah. If you want to make a sandwich in between lines of dialogue, you've got a chance to. And I'm joking here. I'm not making fun of it. Like, I actually really like reference pacing, but it's just you do. It's just funny compared to other subtitled work that I've watched. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think the crux of this is it's kind of the out with the old, in with the new. It's kind of the end of the dawn, and we get the sense that his son, doesn't want to keep this sort of peace treaty that they've got with the cops.
He's a lot more aggressive.
Yeah, Don likes, understands time of peace. And don't get me wrong, we get a lot of his character where he's clearly really, there's a scene where the Captain Cortez shakes his hand, and he's all friendly to him, but as soon as he walks away, he's like, "Oh, filthy peasant, doesn't even wash his hands," and he starts wiping his hand. So he keeps peace, but he's definitely very what's the word?
Opinionated.
Opinionated. Behind the scenes, because we get, I mean, probably the scene that stood out the most to me is that he makes his son go to Captain Cortez to drop off the weekly delivery or the monthly delivery of hush money, essentially, and he says, "Oh, take your cousin, take Jesus with you," and we get this scene, and this one stood out to me the most for 2 reasons. One, it laid out a lot of how the system in this town works with the cartel and the police, but also the way it's shot, and specifically the fact that behind the captain's head the entire time is a Mexican flag, which was very reminiscent of the American flag that was behind Martin's head for like a whole scene last episode. And it stays on him the whole time, even though Miguel's talking to him the whole time. The only time the camera moves anywhere is when he eventually addresses Jesus, and the camera just slowly pans all the way across the room.
Very slowly.
Because there's certain points in the conversation where he, because they're having a football game, a soccer game, like in the next couple of days, and it's something they do. It's the cartel versus a friendly soccer game between the cartel and the police.
There's a lot of talk about Pele in this episode.
Yeah, and the only reason I know who Pele is,
I know what story you're going to tell here. Go on.
is because a few years ago at the EA conference at E3, they brought out Pele to talk about football for what felt like an hour, and it was painful. And I was like, "Who is this idiot? I don't want to hear this footballer talk about football. I want no part of this."
In context of that show, yeah, I agree. That said, I was familiar with him as one of the greatest footballers.
I never heard of him. Never heard of.
Savage.
Yeah, he's talking about Pele a lot. In fact, he repeats himself. That's one of the things that happens, is that he actually tells the same story again.
I mean, if it hadn't got to where it did in that scene, I'd have thought, okay, they're setting up like a dementia thing. But by the end of it didn't really matter.
Oh yeah, by the end of it, he was dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talking about respect. There's a lot of awkward silence waiting. Because Miguel doesn't accept that he's dead at first, and kind of, no, everyone will wait for you to wake up. And Jesus checks his pulse. He's like, nah, he ain't sleeping. Yeah, he ain't sleeping. So you have, much like Martin, fallen in with the criminals on his side, even though clearly Jesus was, I mean, he already shot a cop in the back, or even the back, it was in the face. He made him turn around first. He's definitely going more into this criminal underworld, and the fact that Miguel's even turning it to more, because obviously the end of the episode is Miguel, now that he's in power, he's like, no, we're going to go and shoot all the police. We have a scene of where they're just executing the police, and the final shot even is Jesus pointing the gun at the captain. I mean, it cuts away before we see it happen, but it's very clear.
It does feel like up until the events with his mother being killed, he led a somewhat normal life, or at least not criminal. To nowhere near this extent, certainly.
Not to this, it wasn't like high up in the cartel, seemingly, but yeah, I mean, if let's say he was completely just normal and innocent before that, I wonder if like he was all like, there was always like, maybe that's why Magdalene moved to LA. Maybe she wanted him away from that lifestyle, and maybe there was always a temptation by the rest of the family to like, come and join us and be part of your heritage, blah blah blah. And I wonder if, like, her death, which might have not been the target, that might not have been the goal of the cops when they were doing whatever they were doing. But that death
didn't sound like it was, no.
Yeah, is what's inspired him to sort of fall in with his family.
And it's kind of given us this parallel journey between him and Martin.
Yeah, to the point where I mean, this might just be the first two episodes being completely, one was all one, one's all the other, just for the setting them up. But it wouldn't also surprise me if we do actually get more episodes like this where it's just his side of it.
Yeah, it almost feels like a co-lead after this episode.
Yeah, it does. And I think because everyone knows who, what's his Miles Teller is. Like,
the marketing was all like, hey, it's Miles Teller.
But after watching this episode, it does feel equal. Now, maybe that won't feel. Maybe this is just like a special thing to really set him up, and then we'll mainly focus on the others going forward. But I can see it being pretty fit. Whether it's 50-50 because it's cutting back and forth in each episode, or if it's because they'll literally swap episodes. We'll see, but I mean, obviously they'll eventually intertwine. Because
I will say I mildly prefer. I would hope that they intercut, because I want more neon lighting. There's not enough of that in Mexico.
Yes, it's all bright daylight.
Do you know, that was one of my favorite things when they went to the police. You go in there and it's so dark and dingy in their police station, and there's nothing, and your eyes adjust over, because it's a relatively lengthy scene. Your eyes adjust and you get used to it. And then as they're leaving, they open the door, and all this daylight floods in, and the light in the room suddenly looks normal.
I think you can analyze that a little bit. You can almost argue that they're hiding from the sunlight, and to an extent they literally are, because the sun's so hot and unforgiving. But just the idea of hiding from the light, I mean, obviously the police are corrupt in both stories here, because Larry and Martin are clearly into some shady shit. Yeah. But the idea that here is just like, they'll literally have cartel coming in, dropping off payoffs at the station, and then they're betting on the football game, and they're like, hey, we'll up the money, we'll throw in some whores. Yeah, that's one of the things that they do. They have prostitutes. He's saying, oh, we'll throw in 3 whores. They may be fat though. And there's a joke where like one of the cops off camera is like, oh, I like them fat. And again, so what I was saying last episode, the themes of the show, once again here we have their treatment of women, the money, and the violence and crime. Like, we have all these themes again playing out heavily in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because that was one of the things I noted, was when the camera did eventually pan back in that scene over to Jesus on the couch, who's just kind of sitting very casually. You finally see the cop that made that joke. Now, you probably saw him at the start of the shot before they sat down and started
But
talking.
you didn't pay attention to him because your eyes weren't focused on him at all.
But it wasn't until I went back the way that I went, oh, that's the guy that said that. Because I'd never seen him to that point. So, really neat. And, I mean, I bonded a little with Jesus. I empathize him with a little bit in this episode, actually, because he says, he can say, oh, are you playing the game tomorrow? And he's like, I don't play football. And I'm like, I get him.
I love how the police captain's like, you sure it's part of your family? Don't play football? That don't sound right. And obviously, Miguel's like, no, I'm not sure he is, but Dad says he is, so he must be. But it is part of that, the out. Very much, he's the outsider here.
Yeah, he's the outsider. Kind of like how Martin is a cop in the criminal world and the other story, but he seems to be getting a taste for it. And here, Jesus seems to kind of be as well. Like, even though he has words with Miguel over the course of the episode, he does he goes to the clubs with them. They're with the prostitutes together. At the end, he does execute cops with them. He kind of makes his allegiance felt. He's like, no, he's with him by the end.
He's part of the family still.
Yeah. Because the dad's all about, the Don's all about tradition. He wants to sit and talk to the painting of his dead sister on her birthday, and he gets really upset when Miguel comes in to interrupt him to tell him that the satellite dish is okay.
And he's like, "We're talking to your aunt. Piss off."
Yes, that's essentially it. So you get a good sense of his character. I think I want to commend again with the Don is even though maybe it was more predictable that he was going to be dead soon. Although I could have easily seen him been around the whole time.
It was one of those things because they tease early on. Miguel's right hand man is like, "Hey, Don's not going to be around much longer. You're prime for power." But that could have been an end of the story thing.
Yeah, that could have been 5 episodes. That could have been 10 episodes. But much like some of the characters in the first episode, it's like no, they made us get to know him enough that he felt like a main character before he died.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I think that's impressive. And I think especially in these first 2 episodes, because they were the 2 first episodes of each side of the story, they can really get away with that because we don't know who's going to be sticking around. It's like Jesse on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Except that had one giveaway in that show.
Yeah, it did. But let's stop demeaning this show.
He wasn't in the opening credits.
Inferior quality.
He wasn't. How dare you? He wasn't in the opening credits because they couldn't afford to do 2 versions of the opening titles so they could trick everyone. Because we didn't want to.
Yes, we know.
Yeah, I'll finish my point. I wanted to make my point.
I said, talking about something of lesser quality, completely uncalled for.
Danny Strong. That's Jonathan's real name. We're talking about this in the TV news. It just came out of my head. Danny Strong is Jonathan's real name. Who's now a producer. If anyone watched the TV news that went up yesterday at the time this goes up, and I couldn't think of his name, I just thought of it. I didn't see any comments telling me. That was just me getting it.
I was so confused for a second. I was like, wait, what?
Okay. So that's very much the course of the episode. And it's 97 minutes long, this episode, but so much of it's very slowly setting up the mood and the status quo, and then the potential change in status quo, and then with the death of the Dawn, what the actual status quo change now is right at the very end of the episode. And it's this idea of peace and seeing them play the game together. And he's on the balcony. He's like, this is what peace looks like. This is what peace sounds like. He's all about peace. Whereas Miguel's up and coming hotshot who wants to be, wave his
prove himself. The Don's done all this in his youth. He's talked about that he had his act of rebellion in I mean obviously there was others, but the story he keeps telling, sneaking into the football stadium to watch Pele, right? That was an act of rebellion, and Miguel has clearly never had that. He's kind of just been part of the status quo his whole life. He's been part of the family in charge, and he's been groomed for that. But he wants to be able to do his own thing.
Yeah, and it makes him very dangerous because he is
absolutely.
He's just out. Because at least Jesus, while he's being swerved, does feel like he's a bit more conscientious of what his decisions are. Even if he is falling down this rabbit hole, he feels
a little more unhinged, doesn't he?
Yeah, he feels more unhinged. Gato's the right hand man that was all he's not going to be the Don forever. I'm your guy. Let my allegiance be known.
Who is he's very disrespectful to the Don. In the dinner scene, he's right. He's asleep. Let's drink. Let's eat. But Miguel's having none of it.
Yeah. So we had to talk about Yuritsa, sorry, because she's an interesting character. She kind of sticks out right from the start of the episode. You know, she walks out in front of the field, and all the guys kind of stare at her a little bit. And you know, I think your initial thought is, oh, this is the Don's daughter, right? And this is why she has this kind of respect, even though every other woman that we see in this episode is a prostitute and is owned by the cartel. And then we hear later on that she's not quite that she was more found and adopted, and she's kind of, yeah, it's kind of been brought into this power. There's a couple of really notable scenes where, like, she's sort of like nursing the Don, and it's almost very suggestive. Like, what was their relationship before this? Like, was it sexual? Was it something?
The Don mentions how, you know, she reminds him of his sister.
Which adds all sorts of dimensions to what I just said. Yeah,
I think also wasn't she's the only one who visibly, you know, has any sort of mourning reaction after his death. You know, the others all walk off, they're fighting, they're angry, in denial. Whereas she actually, you know, she cries a little bit.
It makes me think if we're comparing him more to Martin than anyone else. You know, the idea that this is the end of what Martin's journey might be with the much younger woman kind of thing.
Okay.
Given Janie, it's only been 2 episodes. I've not remembered the fact that it's all different characters. This episode does not help me.
no, because there was no chance to remember, like, have a refresher, was there?
Yeah, there wasn't. No, but she, like, I was kind of thinking about that, and I was thinking, like, is this kind? I mean, obviously, like, by the time Martin's this age, like, Janie will also be relatively old. She won't be like as old, but she'll be, you know. Whereas this is obviously a much bigger gap, but
she'll be of an age where you won't question it that much.
Oh yeah, like, you know, I've met, like, I had a friend in school whose parents were 16 years apart from each other, which is longer than this gap. It's just obviously they were both adults when they.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, I think 16 is a bit extreme for most people's standards, but
it's one of those things where, like, you know, 20 to 36 feels like a huge jump, whereas
30 to 46 maybe not as much.
Yeah, and then even more when you go on, like, you know, like 60 to 76. It's like, No, but, you know, hypothetically, you know, like, as it goes on, it becomes less of a.
I think at that point, the 60-year-olds, like, oh, they're going to die soon. That inheritance, I'm taking that, baby. I've got some retirement years left in me. That 76-year-old, though, they're close to the end.
Probably.
We're rubbing their fingers together. But no, so she's an interesting character, and it's funny because last episode I was saying how I was hoping there was going to be a strong female character who was introduced, and I still think we might get that with Jena Malone. We've not got her yet because clearly, or at least I assume she'll be on the LA side of the story.
Stands to reason at this point.
Yeah, but Yuritsa, I keep putting an I at the end instead of an A. Yuritsa very much kind of turns out to have this hidden agenda where she's dropping off a prostitute to some other cartel or other gang or whatever, and she ends up killing them. She pulls out a gun and kills them and, like, kind of frees the prostitute. And she never really answers why she's helping her, really, right? Like, I don't remember her answering.
No, I don't think so.
But, you know, she pulls out a gun and she's kind of like standing there, and it's a great shot, actually. There's a great shot where she's standing in front of the car with the headlights, and the light's just overblowing and blinding kind of thing. So it's almost like giving her a silhouette, but it's actually overpowering her body. So you're only getting, like, a sense of maybe, like, some of her legs and maybe some of her, like, her head and that. Like, it's kind of just blinding out the middle part of her body. And it really feels like she's going against the grain. She's, you know, she's fighting from within against an impossible enemy, but she's doing it.
There is, and there's a scene where she visits it's like a memorial. You know, the big red rock, and she says, you know, I am the high priestess of death, I think it was.
Yeah, she by the end of the episode, I was like, she's maybe the most fascinating character on this side of the plot.
It's interesting because obviously all throughout early on they're talking about the vigilante, right? And, you know, there's an assumption that they're just talking about Martin.
Yeah, maybe. Although I got the impression that it was in Mexico they were talking about rather than.
Maybe you're right.
So it wouldn't be Martin.
It felt like it could have been, like, a lot of it felt like, but, you know, there was more going on. I wonder if it is Yuritsa.
Yeah, she's the Angel of Death. That's a superhero name. She's a vigilante taken out.
Yeah, they keep using that word early on.
Yeah, I wonder, like, you know, we get this idea of revenge, this idea of, like, like where she was left and stranded, like was that the result of the cartel? Is this all one big, like,
It's been the long game.
Yeah, it's the long game, or get trusted enough to get close so she can strike, she can act.
I do suspect revenge is part of it, because that seems to be one of the key themes here. That cycle of revenge, and how so. Larry killed Magdalena, and then Jesus killed him, and now Martin's in. It seems to be spiraling.
I think it's going to keep spiraling. I think, it may just end with everyone being dead because of the cycle of revenge, but I do wonder if there's a character who maybe chooses not to take revenge and they'll be the one real survivor at the end. Like, if that's maybe where we go with this. I mean, we've got 8 episodes, so I mean, so much could happen that'll change, what we were speculating on. But
8 relatively long episodes as well.
Well, 7 relatively long episodes and then 1 really short episode.
7 relatively long episodes and an epilogue. Because I will be shocked if that's not what that is when we get there.
Who knows? Maybe it was the most quickly cut, action-packed episode of the whole bunch. Maybe
never know.
Episode 9 will just set up this big shootout, and then it'll just be like half an hour of shooting. It'll be like just this action.
I'd watch the hell out of that.
Oh, maybe. I think what's funny is that I feel like we've talked most about what we want to talk about with this episode, because it's funny because it's 97 minutes long, but it's so straightforward. Yeah. And
compared to the last one where we're jumping around a lot, there's a lot of things being introduced. This one was actually no. Here's one set of characters. We'll follow it very neatly. The amount of scenes is probably only just in the double digits.
I think it's maybe, honestly, for 97 minutes, this has very few scenes. For its runtime. I think one of the points I'd want to make about the Dawn watching this football game of the cartel versus the police, is that I almost wonder if obviously he likes the sport anyway, but like I'm wondering if like symbolically this is like, no, this reminds him of his first act of rebellion, but it's also representing the peace that he's built because of his power. Because so much of what this show about, again, that's the main theme, is power, right? It's this idea of getting power and feeling that you control everything around you.
I'm also I'm thinking of the story of Christmas Day, World War whatever it was, whichever one it was. It
was World War One because it was the trenches.
Okay, sure. With the Germans and English playing football, right, as a temporary truce. And the football here, it kind of feels like, no, this is a temporary truce. And as soon as the Don's out of play, it's back to war.
Yeah, you can maybe even look at it as that the Don's actually quite, despite the fact that he's still quite an unsavory character, that he's actually a little bit wise in the sense that he's went through this cycle of violence before and has kind of come out thinking it's best to avoid it at all costs. So he's done his best to keep the peace.
I think he absolutely does that, because they keep talking about how he says how we make more money in peacetime. It's easier. Yes, they're paying off the police. They're losing a cut, but overall their profits are up.
Yeah, presumably they've got much more traffic going back and forth because they're not hiding it.
Exactly.
so they're not.
They're not losing people to a war constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an interesting exploration of this family, and just. What's nice about it is that it sets up Yaritza as an interesting character, which I'm really excited to see more of her story and what she's up to, and her kind of eventually going against certain other characters. Does she eventually like unite with another, like, say, quote unquote good character from LA eventually when things cross over? I don't know.
Assuming there is one.
I'm not really unless Janie becomes more of a fighter because she has to be, but I don't really see any other characters being that's the good character. That's the one that we can root for. Maybe Jena Malone's going to be that character.
Maybe, yeah.
Which is funny because typically Jena Malone I expect to play the conniving little witch of a character, because that's who she kind of usually is.
Be a nice subversion though, wouldn't it?
It would be, if she's the noble one, or not even noble, but just fighting for a just cause, I guess, maybe the better way of putting it. But no, obviously the show still looks gorgeous, although I was missing the neon nightlife sort of street lights and all that.
But cinematography is still incredible.
Again, like it'll stay in a shot. I mean, the other shot that I should mention about the camera going, it wasn't panning, it was tracking. But in the club, it was going past all the tables, and then it got to the table. This was after the Don died, and it was the three characters we really knew. It was Yaritza, Miguel, and Jesus, and they're sitting at the table, And eventually, Jesus gets up, and the camera starts, tracking back the way. And it's just this long shot there, and then a long shot back. It's one big continuous take. Really, really good.
One of my favorite shots in cinematography is there's a Jeep going down a road, and we're in front of it, watching it coming towards us, and at one point it just turns and goes off the road and goes across the desert, and the camera doesn't turn, it doesn't cut away, it doesn't turn to look. We just stay on the back of the vehicle we're on, and just keep looking at the empty road and the dust that it's caused, and a lot longer than you ever usually would.
Yeah, going off the beaten path. I don't remember where that shot took place, but I'm going to make a guess and say it was when...
I think it might have been when they were going to the police station.
Was it the police station, or was it Yuritsa at the end? Because I feel like thematically it might make more sense with Yuritsa, because if she's gone off the track, if you will.
See, in my memory, it's earlier in the episode than that, but
that's for now. It probably is. I'm just thinking thematically it would make sense there for me, but
yeah, no, I'm with you. Just a side update on the the sound thing I was talking about last episode.
Sure.
I was paying attention to when it occurred, and you know how I said it was interiors. It was very specific in this episode. It was the interior of the Don's house, and only the interior of the Don's house in this episode.
Interesting.
Yeah, so inside there had this that dreamlike quality, even more so than normal, because of the sound. But when we were inside the police station, for example, there was room noise, there was background sound. Felt normal.
It felt like you were out in the grimy world.
Yeah, whereas inside the mansion, I say mansion, it felt...
It was a mansion.
Felt separate. It was, yeah.
I would say a mansion. Actually, yeah, I think maybe what I'd read into that then, with you pointing that out, is the idea that the vacuum essentially is a symbol of the power, and the idea that there's no distractions because you've just achieved what you want. Whereas when they go to the police station, it's like all these little distractions and the imperfection of
I would love to have paid attention. Obviously, it's only just occurred to me now. I wonder if at the end, after the Don's death, if it stays the same, if anything in the mansion after that has room noise, if it hasn't got that complete
I don't know if there was really any scenes in the mansion after the...
I don't know if there was. That's what I'm thinking. But if that would have been something...
Oh, there was. The funeral was there. That was, the Cortez came in and tried to talk to him.
I'd have to rewatch it, because if it's back to kind of regular sound there, then it would be very much, this was the Don's world, right? It was separate from everything else. But now that they're back on war, it's all kind of open territory.
Now, assuming that it stays though that way, I would suggest that when they're in their fortress and they feel at peace, there's no background noise. It's completely perfect, essentially.
Yeah.
But when they leave that fortress, when they go to, the grimy, as the Don said earlier on, like the peasant, can't even wash his hands. Like that's when the dirtier audio comes in.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be paying attention to this now.
Yeah, because it wasn't every episode in the last one either, so I'm wondering if it's specifically when someone's in a place where they feel powerful, but when they're out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe that's where it comes in a little bit more. I don't know. It's interesting. But that is episode 2 of Too Old to Die Young. We'll be back with episode 3 day after tomorrow. At least that's the plan. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fudge for channel updates. If you want to show your support, obviously you can do it that way I just said. You can rate us on your podcast app, your iTunes, or wherever else. Give us 5 stars. It spreads the show to more people. But of course you can do it even more so financially if you go over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. Get some bonuses, exclusive, some early stuff, and then get us closer to some goals that unlocks more content for everyone. So go and have a look at that. In terms of just telling you what else is going on, I mean, I'm sure it's probably similar to what I said in the last one, but just to reiterate, we're working through Handmaid's Tale weekly right now. Season 3 of that's on. Coming this Friday is The Return of Dark, Season 2 from Netflix. We're working on that. Right now, me and Tara are doing Big Little Lies on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of big TV content going on right now. So go check it out. And obviously, we mentioned Twin Peaks a lot last episode. Yeah, we reviewed all of Twin Peaks in 2017 from start to finish. So go check out that too. But that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?